The little girl's sob echoed across the hospital parking lot, sharp enough to stop even hardened men in their tracks. Her tiny hands trembled as she pointed toward the emergency entrance, where 2 security guards stood blocking the door. Her voice cracked with fear as she begged anyone who would listen. In that split second, the world seemed to freeze, because the men she was crying to weren't ordinary strangers. They were members of the Hells Angels, leather-vested giants with tattoos telling stories as old as violence and as deep as regret. And every one of them froze when they saw the tears on that little girl's face. Backhand index pointing right. If you believe in kindness, humanity, and second chances, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support means everything. The little girl's name was Lily. Only 6 years old, with soft blonde curls and a blue dress that looked a size too big. She was the kind of child who held her stuffed toy with both arms, the kind who feared thunderstorms but loved fireflies. She should have been anywhere except standing alone outside an emergency room, her eyes red from crying. But life rarely cares about what should happen. Her mother, Emily, had collapsed earlier in the day from a sudden medical emergency. Lily had ridden with her in the ambulance, clutching her mother's cold hand the entire way. But the moment they arrived, chaos began. Due to a strict new hospital policy and a shift change confusion, security refused to let Lily inside with her mother. They pushed her aside, telling her to wait. But she was 6, she didn't understand rules, only fear. And in her desperation, she ran toward the only group that hadn't ignored her, the bikers parked in a rough line near the ambulance bay. At the front of the group stood a massive man named Mason. His beard was thick, his arms covered in inked stories of loss, loyalty, and battles he rarely spoke about. He had led tough men through tougher situations, but nothing, not even the fights he survived, prepared him for the sight of a sobbing little girl begging for help. Something inside him cracked. Gently lowering himself to one knee, he asked her what had happened. She explained in choked breaths that her mother was inside and that those men wouldn't let her in. Mason didn't need to hear more. In that moment, she wasn't just a random child, she was someone who needed protection, someone small in a world that too often forgot to care. The Hells Angels weren't saints. They all knew that. Their jackets carried weight, scars, whispers, and a history most people judged without ever understanding. But beneath the leather and the reputation were men who valued loyalty, honor, and above all, protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. And today, there was a child whose world was collapsing. With a slow, steady breath, Mason stood. His boots thudded across the pavement as he walked toward the security guards. Behind him, the rest of the bikers formed a silent wall, intimidating, unbreakable, unspoken in their unity. Nurses by the door paused. A few visitors backed away. Even the automatic doors seemed to hesitate. Mason didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His presence was enough. One guard stuttered, instantly losing his earlier confidence. The other swallowed hard as Mason explained, with chilling calmness, that a child belonged with her mother, and anyone preventing that was making a grave mistake. Within seconds, the guards stepped aside. Fear? Respect? Maybe both. But the important thing was that Lily was allowed through. Mason knelt again, telling Lily she could hold his hand if she wanted. She hesitated, then wrapped her tiny fingers around his tattooed ones. Together, they walked into the emergency room, the bikers remaining outside in a silent formation that resembled a protective force more than a motorcycle club. Inside, the air smelled of antiseptic and fear. Machines beeped in urgent rhythms. Voices murmured with worry. Lily released Mason's hand the moment she saw her mother lying unconscious. She ran to the bedside, climbing onto the chair and holding her mother's hand just as she had in the ambulance. Mason stepped back, his heart unexpectedly heavy, watching the reunion. He didn't know why this moment hit him so hard. Maybe it reminded him of his own daughter, from a life he lost years ago. Maybe it reminded him that beneath every rough exterior was a human story, fragile and fleeting. Or maybe it was just that this child, with her trembling voice and courageous pleading, had carved her way into the one part of him he thought had died long ago. Doctors soon explained that Emily's collapse had been caused by severe exhaustion, dehydration, and untreated stress. She hadn't been eating enough, working too much, carrying too many responsibilities alone. As Lily sat quietly by her mother's side, Mason stepped outside the room, feeling a strange pull to ensure things didn't end in silence. When Emily regained consciousness hours later, the first thing she saw was her daughter clinging to her, tears of relief soaking her gown. The second thing she saw, through the window, was a line of bikes and leather-clad men still standing outside under the setting sun. Emily didn't know who they were, but she knew what they had done. And gratitude filled her eyes. When she was stable enough to sit up, Mason finally walked in. Emily tried to thank him, but words fell short. Mason simply nodded, telling her she had a brave little girl, and that no one should ever face fear alone. The hospital staff, now fully aware of what had happened, apologized profusely for their earlier mistake. But it was Lily's innocent whisper that broke everyone's heart. She thanked Mason for being the big angel who helped me. Not the biker. Not the outlaw. Not the tattooed stranger. But an angel. And for the first time in years, Mason felt something heal inside him. Backhand index pointing right. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, subscribe, and help spread kindness in the world. Speech balloon special request. Comment below with "Angels come in all forms" if you believe kindness can come from unexpected places. Emily recovered fully in the weeks that followed. Lily grew up believing that strength wasn't in muscles or leather jackets, but in choosing to stand up for someone else, no matter who they were. And the Hells Angels? They rode off that evening without saying much. But everyone at the hospital knew one thing. Sometimes the people the world fears the most are the ones who show the greatest compassion when it matters.